we are going to go over the back-end design editor of SOLIDWORKS Cell. From the Templates library, select your template to go into the editor. You'll notice several tabs on the top of the user interface, and for now we are going to start in the Parts tab. Here, you'll be able to see all of the parts that are in your template, and for this table assembly, you'll see that I have all the different tabletops and legs for the table. To the right of the thumbnails, there are different settings and options that are applicable to each part. One important section is the Attachment Points tab. These points mark where parts connect with one another, so that if the relative location changes, the parts will update their locations automatically to stay connected. This table already has several attachment points that were imported from SOLIDWORKS as sketch points. These mark where I want the legs to attach to the tabletop. Although, in order for the leg and table to connect together, they both need to have attachment points so we can link them together later. To demonstrate this, I will go to leg 1, which has no attachment points. To add one, I will simply click Add and drag the point around the model, left-clicking it to place it. If I am not satisfied with where I've placed the point, I can delete it by clicking X or selecting the checkbox and clicking Remove. Something that might be helpful when placing attachment points is the bounding box. This creates a transparent box around your part and creates temporary points along the edges and middle of faces. Now, if I add my attachment point again, I can make sure to add it right in the middle of the top face. One important thing to mention is to make sure that the attachment points are the same for both configurations of the tabletop. By making sure each tabletop has points 2 through 5, will ensure that connections carry over when the configuration is changed. Next, we'll go to the Groups tab, which has a similar user interface. Rather than all of the parts on the left, you'll see the groups that were created in the publisher with all of their configurations. This is where you can assign materials and other settings that apply to the group as a whole. To assign the materials to the group, you click Set Materials and a pop-up appears with all of the possible materials you can use. As this can be a long list, it may be helpful to select the kind of material you are looking for from the drop-down menu. In this case, I will select the wood option. This narrows down the list significantly and makes it easier to select which materials you want. I'm going to select a few kinds of wood and click OK. Now, all of the materials that were selected show up under the Materials menu. If you want to get rid of a material, go back to Set Materials, find it in the menu, and deselect it. Another important aspect is the Group Type menu. As of right now, all of the legs to my table are in separate groups, and would therefore act separately from one another. One way to make them act the same is to set one of the leg groups to a shape and the others to a connection. When a group type is set to connection, it does not show up in the groups list in the Assemblies tab or in the previews. In order to get them to act together, you would need to link them all to the leg that is classified as a shape. This would make the user interface simpler and less confusing by having only one group controlling the legs. Moving on to the Assemblies tab. This is where you can put together all of the pieces and create a model that consumers will see. To simply create an assembly, click the Create WCS Assembly and it will automatically make your assembly in the graphics area. The left of the screen shows the connections between the legs and the tabletop. Clicking on the individual lines will pull up the Points menu. This is where you set attachment points to one another. In the Points menu, the two parts will show up with all of their possible connectable points. I will connect point 2 of the tabletop to point 2 of the leg and click Connect to finalize it. From there, I will connect the rest of the legs in a similar fashion. For leg 2, I will connect point 3 to point 2. For leg 3, I will connect point 4 to point 2. And finally, for leg 4, I will connect point 5 to point 2. Now, with all of the attachments in place, you'll notice how when I select the circle table, the connections transfer over because the attachment points have all of the same numbers for each of the tables. If this were not the case, some of the table legs would not attach correctly to the circle table when the configuration changes. Another thing you'll notice is the legs are different colors, and this is because they haven't been linked together yet. In order to get them to act as one, you simply go to the Links menu and select New Link. From here, you can drag and drop each leg into the box and select Part Link and Material Link. This solidifies that when one of them changes shapes or materials, the rest of the legs will synchronize automatically. Here ends our overview of the back-end editor of SOLIDWORKS Cell.